So good afternoon. I am Lester Taylor, partner with the law firm of Florio, Perrucci, Steinhardt, Capelli, Tipton, and Taylor. We're very proud and happy to be part of this year's New Jersey School Boards Association virtual workshop. We are presenting a series of fireside chats, and this afternoon I am pleased and honored to be in the presence of representatives from the Hackensack Public School District, Mr. Lancelot Powell, Board President, as well as Robert Sanchez, Superintendent of Schools. Mr. Powell, do you want to say a few words?
Yeah, good afternoon, Mr. Taylor. And I just want to say thank you for the invite. And I'm honored to be here this afternoon to participate and to answer your questions and also to represent Hackensack School District.
Thank you, Mr. Powell. Mr. Sanchez.
Yeah, so good afternoon, all. Also very happy to be here today participating in this fireside chat. Looking forward to answering the questions.
Okay. So, Mr. Powell, I'll start with you. How long have you been on the Board of Education?
April of next year, we make 3 years. So
3 years, okay. And a question that you probably ask yourself every day, why did you become a board member?
It's a very good question. Well, first thing, my son went to Hackensack District. And while he was in school, I was very involved as a parent. So I saw things that, became a little bit concerned about. And nothing is perfect, but I just thought I could get involved. And with my input, maybe we could try to make things a little bit different. And it was also my belief that school board members, boards should be responsive and be receptive to parents. And at that time, I didn't see them being very receptive to parents. And I also think they should also not only be receptive to parents, but staff, students, and the community at large, communicating open, having open communication and dialogue. I didn't see that, so I decided if I get involved, I could maybe help to foster that communication.
Okay, and Mr. Sanchez, we'll come to you in a minute, but Mr. Powell, you said something that I think was very intriguing there, because you strike me as a pretty hands-on, community-oriented person. So how has what you just said in terms of your role and goals as a board member changed since the pandemic started, since you really can't communicate personally with your constituents, your neighbors, and the students and staff in the district?
It's a new way forward. Initially it seemed a little challenging, but we adjusted, on the fly, and now we communicate via Zoom. We just had one meeting where we had social distancing. But for the most part, it's been Zoom, so we got adjusted to it, and it's very interesting. But it's a different way of communication, and we all have to get used to it now because this seems to be the new way forward, where you don't have the audience there, so they're on the Zoom link with you. So it was a little different, some little technical difficulties here and there, but we have a great technical staff, and we ironed out things, and everything just started going smoothly in terms of communication with the community.
Okay, thank you. And to you, Mr. Sanchez, how long have you been in education?
Well, this would be the beginning of my 29th year in education.
Okay, and if I'm not mistaken, you're relatively new to the position of superintendent in Hackensack, correct?
Yes, that is correct. Actually, I just completed my first year of superintendency, and of course, that first year has taken place here in Hackensack.
And so what motivated you to want to ascend to the position of Chief School Administrator?
Well, so, you always feel that it's best when you can make the rules. So, I've always wanted to be a superintendent because I believe it gives me the best opportunity to help kids. As a district's educational leader, I'm uniquely positioned to provide direction and stimulate action to protect the learning interests of students. So very excited to be able to do that here in Hackensack.
Okay, so I imagine that when you were interviewing for the position of superintendent in Hackensack, you had a number of goals and objectives that you presented to the board, and then in turn to your team that you wanted to accomplish. But I imagine pandemic wasn't on the radar at that time with COVID-19. So how has the pandemic affected you implementing some of the goals and objectives that you wanted to bring to Hackensack?
So, clearly the pandemic has made things difficult for all superintendents, throughout the country, let alone just us here locally. You come in with a set of goals in mind. Of course, your first goal as a new superintendent is to sit and observe the lay of the land and try to determine what the best things are to do with moving forward. But of course, we were all set to do our strategic planning initiative back in March, and clearly that's when the pandemic hit. So, things are kind of in a pause. But with that said, it's also, in my opinion, while not the easiest time, but it's the most important time to be a superintendent. I think now more than ever, our school communities are looking forward to knowing that there's somebody in the district looking out for their children's interests. And I'm happy to be that person here.
Wow, and that's actually a perfect segue into my next question for Mr. Powell. Mr. Powell, I have to say, as a father myself, one of the most humbling and exciting experiences of my life was when I had the chance to coach my son's basketball team last year. And so to hear you say that you were motivated to become a board member based upon your son's involvement in the school district was something that I think is inspiring. So I guess, who are some of your role models, and do you see yourself as a board member as a role model in your community?
Yeah, a two-part question. Throughout my life, I've had important role models, but the one person who has been a constant in my life is my mom, my mother. She's such a good, kind-hearted, positive person who taught me all my values. She taught us that we can be great regardless of our socioeconomic skills. She has always pushed us way beyond our comfort zone, encouraging us never to accept failure. And myself and my siblings, those values were instilled in us. And today, they're still a part of us. And that has helped me to be the kind of person I am. She was always there for us no matter what. So, even when we're down and we're shaken, she taught us the importance of compassion and helping others. Basically, what I'm saying is that my mother's gentle nature and tender heart made a mark on me from the beginning. Now, do I consider myself a role model? I strive to be, and I strive to be the best that I can be all you can be. And I hope that other, individuals, especially the students, can learn from myself and others to be better individuals, but also always believe in themselves and never let anyone tell you that you can never do it or you can never make it. Because I believe in all our students, and I think they will all make it as long as we are behind them and pushing them and instilling great values inside them, yes.
Great answer. Mr. Sanchez, and we admittedly experienced a little bit of technical difficulties today in getting this Zoom meeting off to a start. So how have you been keeping your staff, as well as students and parents, involved and informed over the past several months?
Yeah, so that's the $1 million question. The truth is it really hasn't been easy. But as far as keeping our staff and community and our parents informed, we've used everything in all of our resources, from Zoom webinars, district webinars with our parents and stakeholders. Obviously our schools have had their own webinars. I pride myself in making all of the robocalls. I think it's important that our parents hear my voice. Of course, I happen to be bilingual, so I do those calls in Spanish too. So I think that goes a long way for the parents hearing and hearing directly from their superintendent. There's numerous emails, letters that go home. We're using everything at our disposal to make sure that we can communicate with our parents so that they know exactly what's going on, and that we're really looking to make things as good as possible for their children.
Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Powell, from a virtual learning standpoint, and in your district, are you doing a hybrid, in-person and virtual, or all virtual? What are you doing this year?
The teachers are in school teaching, and the students are home, and we are looking to resume in November, yes.
Okay, so that's a unique model, because as we know, there's a different model in every district. So I guess, what are some of your hopes as a board member in terms of continuing student achievement and providing high quality instruction through that platform you just described in your school district?
Well, my hopes are that all students can learn and will learn, despite their adverse conditions currently facing them. Also, continue motivation and commitment as we progress with virtual learning, which is new, but vigorous concentration and consistency with our communication is the key in order to get our students up to speed and for them to have a wonderful education. So we're committed to it, and I'm sure we'll be successful.
Okay. And Mr. Sanchez, again, you have those boyish good looks there, but you did say that you've been in the business for 20 plus years. And obviously virtual learning wasn't on the table when you were in the classroom. So, as a chief school administrator, what are some of your, hopes and goals for your staff, but also your students as we continue through the pandemic and this virtual learning platform?
Yeah, so first and foremost, my hope is that we can mirror the classroom experience to the greatest extent possible for our students. We really want to do the best we can to ensure that students progress and achieve, knowing that, an improved learning experience is paramount to satisfying student and parent expectations at this time. Clearly, this pandemic has caused situations that nobody was anticipating, but we also know that, just because the world around us has changed, we cannot stay stagnant, and we have to adapt. And, to that end, we've, increased our bandwidth. We've increased our technology usage. We've ensured that every student that we have a one-to-one initiative, so every student has a device at home. So we're doing everything we can to stream live instruction so that the students don't fall behind.
Good. And I guess that leads me to, I'm sure you've heard of a SWOT analysis: strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats. What maybe are some of the pitfalls that you as a district encouraged and that you have pivoted and maybe addressed and made better over the last couple of months?
Yeah, so that technology use it's a big piece. As a future-ready district, many of our teachers were already adept at using technology, but of course, there's always veteran teachers that some are somewhat resistant. But I always say that you never know what somebody's capable of until you back them into a corner. And some of our teachers, faced that. Those that were resistant to that change didn't have a choice when the schools were shut down to learn these new technology platforms and move ahead. Some of the challenges, of course, is listen, clearly there was a learning curve for some. We've continued to move forward. Our teachers have shared best practices. We actually had a team of technology teacher leaders that put together many videos and help sessions for our staff to make sure that everybody could get on the same page. And I can't say enough about our amazing tech team. With the support of our technology coordinator, we've been able to move the district forward. But there are still challenges. The challenges, are many. Again, this is something that's not normal for any of us. And there's right now we also have to find that healthy balance for the right amount of screen time. The last thing we want right now is for our students to, get screen fatigue, right? Because, it's important that our students have fun at school. If not, if they're not having fun, then they're going to lose interest in school.
Okay. So I guess, Mr. Powell, your board meetings, are you doing those remote now by Zoom or in person?
We just had one in person, but for the most part, yeah, Zoom.
Okay. And I'm sure that in either platform, you want to have a transparent, open line of communication with the public. But with that premise, which do you prefer, Zoom meetings with your colleagues or in person?
I love in person, but like I said, we had to get adjusted to Zoom. But I'm enjoying Zoom also. But for the most part, we did in person for a long time, and I thoroughly enjoy both of them.
Okay. So I guess on a more serious note, with the changes that have had to be implemented from a governance standpoint as a board member, administratively as a superintendent, I'll start with you, Mr. Powell. What are some things that maybe changed in the district due to COVID that you might want to keep in effect when and if things get back to normal?
That's a very good question. Well, online is not a bad idea. Online is forced on us. It's not a bad idea. It forced our staff and younger students to become more tech savvy. So that's a wonderful, in ways they have never had to before. So it also assures that the district can go remote at any time, whether it be a pandemic or a snow day.
That's a very, very good point. You actually stole my segue to Mr. Sanchez as an example. Districts are always hampered with, having to extend the school year or modify the calendar during spring break or winter break due to snow days. So Rob, is there another example that you can think of that you might want to keep in effect post-pandemic based upon what you've learned over the last few months?
Yeah, well, so like I mentioned before, that sharing of best practices of technology and keeping that tech team of teacher leaders, I think that's, important for our staff to keep developing their skills, because we never know, when the next pandemic will come around, or if the school districts shut down again, for a second wave of the pandemic. I mean, clearly right now we're full remote, but as the board president mentioned before, right now we're anticipating going into live in-person instruction for those families that want it on November 2nd. So we're going to monitor it. But I will tell you an interesting piece that I found that was pretty valuable with these Zoom webinars that we've been doing for our parents. We've never had such great parent participation. I guess just the fact that parents can actually stay at home and not have to come out in inclement weather, or just the managing of making dinner at home for their children and leave the house. We had a kindergarten orientation meeting, which I believe, annually we've had about 30 or 40 parents. And I think this year we had over 90 parents that participated. So while there still will always be a place for in-person parent meetings, I think, moving forward, I think it's very powerful to use these virtual platforms, because I think it really does increase our parental participation.
Okay. Mr. Powell, Hackensack has a very rich and proud tradition, whether it be athletics, academics, the arts. How do you hope to create and maintain and strengthen that district-wide culture during this virtual and hybrid environment we're operating in?
Well, like you said, Hackensack has a rich culture. It's very diverse. So we just have to continue to reach out to our community and try to get more parents involved. And we just find different ways and means of showing them that we care about diversity. And we're here for all kids. So whether through Zoom or in person, that's what we strive for. And we try to cultivate a communication style of transparency, whether via Zoom or in person, which is very important. As long as we're transparent with your community, I'm sure things will work out well or bode well for us. And we aim to continue to work with all parents and have meetings, like Mr. Sanchez said. We continue to have dialogues with them, because Hackensack is all about diversity. So we just find different ways. Also, we try to get parents involved with us, and we take suggestions from them. So we are open. It's not just us trying to tell parents what to do or make the rules. We try to get them involved and try to get them to participate with us and give feedback. Feedback is very important. So we are receptive to it, and we're open to it. Open communication and transparency.
Okay. And I guess, Mr. Sanchez, from a different, angle, as a chief school administrator, you came in a year or so ago, mid-year, you're preparing for and then implementing a plan based upon the pandemic. How are you creating a educational leadership culture and a culture of excellence with your staff when maybe you haven't had, as much time to maybe not meet all of them, but develop, relationships with all of them, since being a leader is also people business. So how has that affected you, and or how are you creating a strong culture in your district?
Yeah, so listen, you're right on the mark when it comes to the culture of the district being part of the leader's responsibility. I mean, it all stems from the top, and I'd be lying if I didn't say that the pandemic has caused some challenges, because part of creating that culture is that rapport that you develop with staff and your community. And the pandemic has closed us down to many of those avenues. Even graduation ceremonies this year were virtual. So those challenges, in creating that culture become very difficult. But some of the little things that we've done, and they're not really little, is we've made an investment into our facilities, and we believe that by making an investment in our facilities, making them more welcoming for our parents, and our staff and students, that shows our community that we care about them, and that helps to start to create that culture that our students matter. So those are the little things that we're doing. That being said, it's celebrating the achievements of staff, celebrating the accomplishments of students. And even throughout the pandemic, we were still able to do that. I mean, even from Zoom-based, Spanish Honor Society and athletic award ceremonies, culminating with even in late July or mid-July, early July, excuse me, we were able to do an in-person graduation ceremonies for over 500 students at 5 different sessions due to social distancing restrictions with over 100 kids each. So, you know, we're doing the best we can to try to maintain some kind of normalcy and respect the traditions. You know, in Hackensack, there's a bridge overpass is part of the tradition of, you know, it's that rite of passage when you've graduated from the high school to go across that bridge. And we knew that somehow, some way, some form, we had to maintain that tradition, and we were able to do that in early July. So that was a good thing for the community.
Wow.
I just want to add that Mr. Sanchez does send out newsletters also to the community, and he sends out surveys to faculty, staff, and families to keep his finger on the pulse of the needs of the district. As it is very important that we meet the needs of our district and we continually strive to create a culture that is healthy for all. So I want to commend him and his administrative staff on that.
Wow. Well, it sounds like you have a very motivated, passionate, and committed team from board members to administrators and all your staff members, certificated and non-certificated in the district. So this might be a hard question to answer, but Mr. Powell, are there any examples of instances where you've seen or heard of a staff member or even a parent or a student going above and beyond during this pandemic to kind of make sure that things got done?
Yeah, and there's too many to mention. Too many, but I wanted to mention a particular staff member who was very instrumental in a food drive.
Okay.
And the Carroll family. So I just wanted to, that was awesome. It took off, and there's no words here to express how grateful we are to the Carroll's family for feeding so many. It became so huge that it made the papers, so many people are aware of it. But in times like this, there's so many parents that are struggling to feed their kids. And these are unprecedented times. And they went far and beyond to feed our kids, and we're truly grateful to the Carroll family. Of course, we all helped, but they were instrumental in initiating it and keeping it on track. And yes, wow, we're truly grateful to them.
That's very commendable. I mean, we hear a lot about food insecurity. You know, Hackensack being a very diverse, not just racial, ethnic, but also socioeconomic community. And the reality is a lot of students, you know, only get healthy meals while they're in school. And so it's good that you've got people pulling together to make sure that students are getting a healthy, nutritious meal, which make them better learners. Rob, can you think of any examples of staff members that have gone above and beyond to, you know, make this arrangement work as best as it could?
Sure. So I'm actually glad that President Powell mentioned the Carroll family, because what they did for our families was truly tremendous. But the truth is, all of our teachers have been really amazing. They're so compassionate and loving of their students. Every school had teachers go above and beyond the call of duty. They recorded song parodies for their students. They had car parades just to keep the kids motivated. You know, they hosted virtual dance parties. They even delivered school supplies to, you know, to people's, to students' doorsteps, you know, again, maintaining that social distance. I could even think of my high school and middle school administration, you know, delivering caps and gowns to students' homes, just to, not only just to make sure that the kids had their caps and gowns for their pictures and graduation ceremonies, but also just to have that human connection. And this was all, you know, during their own time, which was really admirable. We really have an amazing staff, and I'm really proud to be working in this community.
Wow, wow, very, very impressive. Mr. Powell, what are some of the, I guess, accomplishments and or achievements that you've seen in the past year that you as a board member are most proud of in your school district?
I think I lost you. Hold on.
Okay, so what we'll do is to keep things moving, we'll segue because we're on live TV. And I'll ask you that, Mr. Sanchez, while Mr. Powell works with his technical issue. What are some of the achievements?
I'm happy to jump in. So listen, we have quite a few things to be proud of. You know, first and foremost, you know, as mentioning that, you know, while we had some struggles with some of our staff, we really have an amazing staff, you know, that was really able to hit the ground running even as early as March with this live instruction, the video conferencing. While many districts were struggling to get that going, we were really able to hit the ground running. So that's something that we're proud of. And we did have a lot of positive feedback from our parents. We weren't perfect, but I think we went above and beyond and did a great job with that. Also, I can tell you that, just last year, right before the pandemic hit us locally, we went through our QSAC evaluation, and we passed that with flying colors. We were once again designated as a high-performing district. Despite the challenges of our pandemic, our high school graduates were still accepted to many prestigious universities such as Johns Hopkins. We had students attend Howard University, NYU, Boston University, Rutgers, just to name a few, George Washington. So it's really tremendous. And then, of course, last and certainly not least, at the beginning of the school year, we had 5 of our schools get designated at the various statuses for either silver or bronze for the Future Ready Schools Initiative. So, a lot of positive things happen for us during these troubling times, and we feel that the best is yet to come.
Wow. So, Mr. Powell, I just want to transition back to you, and based upon some of those accomplishments that Mr. Sanchez referenced, and we understand that the board sets governance and policy, and Mr. Sanchez indicated that leadership starts at the top and tone is set at the top. What do you think separates or differentiates your board, perhaps from other boards, that creates an atmosphere where your administrators and teachers and staff kind of all working and going in the same direction and singing the same song?
Very good question. Here you can mention that we were ready. Yeah. As you watch the news, you see many districts were struggling to get Chromebooks. We were ready. We had our Chromebooks and we were ready to go from day one. We had enough devices for our students, so that's a plus. And that just goes to show how much we invest in our students and how prepared we are. And it's not just the pandemic, but how prepared we are in general for our students. Our overall passion from administrators and teachers were evident always, even before the pandemic, okay? Administrators, programs instituted during lockdown, example, drive-bys. We had a couple of drive-bys. Okay. Families, loved ones being able to see their teacher was very important. Students were able to drive by and see their teachers and wave. That meant a lot to our students. That interaction was priceless.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Sanchez, how do you see professional development and mentorship of your teachers, particularly your newer, younger teachers, being, molded to be a better fit to ensure that they are equipped with the tools and resources and skills to deliver instruction in this hybrid model that we have?
Yeah, so now more than ever, we need our professional development to increase our teachers' proficiency with technology. Mastery of technology, though, is not our only focus. As we mentioned before, our community is very diverse. So we're also committed to increasing cultural proficiency amongst our staff. And we're engaged in a lot of professional development in that area. Our district has also started a district equity team that really came from, teachers that really wanted to do this hard work and get ourselves ready to, give our students the best opportunity to achieve in this global world.
Okay. So, as we wind down, I just want to thank Mr. Sanchez and Mr. Powell again for their time and their commitment. And I guess in closing, Mr. Powell, I have a twofold question for you, and Rob, you'll have a minute to think about it. But, as a board member, Mr. Powell, what keeps you up at night on the one hand, and then what inspires you to keep going, particularly in a very difficult environment? Because while I understand your community, as indicated by both of you, has been very supportive, oftentimes as an elected official, you are privately praised and publicly shamed. And so how do you deal with that in terms of what keeps you up, and how do you keep going and inspires you?
Sounds familiar.
Yes. Awesome question. My goodness. There were times when I felt like we were not accomplishing much, but through the years working with the great team of board members, we have been able to accomplish much of the staff, for the staff and students and the community in general in Hackensack. Being able to effect positive changes, and I'd say again, positive changes throughout the district has been life-changing for our students. We recently built and opened a new field at the middle school, a new turf. You have to drive by one day and see it. It's beautiful. And it's been a long time coming, but one of the great things about building that turf is kids need somewhere to play. They're constantly cooped up and locked up since the pandemic, and now this field is open. They have somewhere to go out and play and have a good time. You know, social skills are very important for our students. So I just want to commend the board, the administration, and everyone in getting this field done. And we're currently working on building new tennis courts for our students, and they need it. Kids need to play, and safely, of course, but they need to get out and play. And the other question is, I said earlier, many parents are struggling to feed their kids. And to me, that's huge. I really take that seriously. I never imagined that we would be going to a period like this. Never. If you told me last year that it would be like this, I would say no. Yeah. However, we are resilient and we have to be strong. I worry about the mental and physical health of our students in times like this. Many of our students were physically depressed during that time because they're not accustomed to being cooped up and locked up, looking through the windows and being told, you cannot go outside, you cannot go outside. So because they were so stretched in many ways, I really felt bad for them. What's going to happen when the rent moratorium is gone, and many of our parents cannot afford to pay their bills? I am very worried about that. I'm hoping there's not a huge increase in the number of homeless students in the United States or in Hackensack. But these are things sometimes we tend to overlook, but these are things we really need to focus on. If kids are not happy, if they're depressed, if they're hungry, how can they be happy? How can we educate them? So this keeps me up at nights. Also, teachers who have done remote teaching must be equal partners. We have to recognize these teachers and bring them into the fold. International study finds that teacher leadership enhances student academic achievement. So we have to recognize them, bring them in. And you know, not a lot of people were up to speed with technology, but now we have to. So those people are really tech savvy. We should really bring them in and get them to help their peers, which is very important. Lastly, I worry about the mental and physical health of our educators. We can't forget them. I worry about if and when and how a transition to hybrid learning will occur, hoping that the infection or the number of infection begin to decrease. And as it begins to decrease, more districts will transition to hybrid learning. And as we do, I really hope the infection levels stay down. And I worry that schools everywhere will, as they did in the spring, mistake equality for equity. I'll say this again, we have to be careful not to mistake equality for equity. During this crisis, we need to focus more on equity because there are vulnerable students with special needs, and there is a huge opportunity gap facing many students. These students will need to receive extra support from all of us in Hackensack and in the United States and globally. Yes.
Wow, excellent, very heartfelt and empathetic response.
Thank you.
Mr. Sanchez, not that you know you can one up your board president, but from your perspective as an administrator, you know what keeps you up at night, and I'm sure it's not one thing with everything going on in your district, but also what inspires you to keep on keeping on in Hackensack.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, thank you, President Powell. A hard act to follow, but I will say that you know, ditto to everything he said. And, you know, to not repeat, you know, everything he said, I'll add one additional thing. The other piece that keeps me up is that I'm concerned about the regression that some students may face academically. The reality is, as great a job we're doing with remote learning, it's not the same. There's no substitute for in-person instruction, and we really need to get our kids in. We hope that the infection levels stay low because our kids really need to be in. This summer slide that everybody knows about is that regression that students have over the summer. You add that to the COVID slide, and I'm just really concerned of our youngest learners and our students with special needs as how they move forward from here. Because there is a loss of instruction that is going to be hard to recover from, and I think we'll see that for many years to come. Even if somehow miraculously the pandemic disappeared tomorrow, I still think we're already behind. So that's a struggle for all, and we really have to bear down and do the best we can for our students to make sure that they achieve academically. But to reiterate, President Powell, what he stated, the most important thing right now is our students' social and emotional well-being. If they're not fed, if they're not feeling well, if they're struggling with depression, how do they learn? Of course, the most important reason why students go to school is to learn, but we need to take care of their social and emotional health before we can even attempt to do any of the academic pieces, which are so critically important. Closing, what inspires me? The truth, teachers and students always. As I walk through the hallways and I see the excitement on our teachers, while they're in their Zoom or Google Meets live classrooms, the passion that they exude is infectious. And the positive vibes demonstrated by the teachers renews my faith in the educational system. Even under these very troubled times, our teachers really have gone above and beyond. The passion that they demonstrate for our students is just something that's incomparable.
Wow. Well, on behalf of our law firm, Florio, Perrucci, Steinhardt, Capelli, Tipton, and Taylor, I want to sincerely thank Mr. Lancelot Powell, President of the Hackensack Board of Education, and Mr. Robert Sanchez, Superintendent of the Hackensack Public Schools. Gentlemen, you are truly examples of leadership, educational excellence in our state, and I thank you again for your time. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.